Hi, management class. Hope everybody is becoming a little unfrozen now, a little nicer today. Maybe you can get out a little bit. So, wanted to discuss your uh, chapter this week more about planning. And probably one of the most important functions of being a manager is planning. Really planning the whole year. Every year turns over, you start to plan for the next year when you get close. So when I think of planning, I think of budgeting. Um, Most companies are going to budget their monies. After the pandemic, it was probably pretty tough to try to figure these things out, and particularly if you're going to compare budget numbers before the pandemic and after. So I would guess at this point, companies are they're going into their budgeting processes are going to be um, probably going to downplay making money somewhat and certainly going to keep an eye on their expenses because it's just hard to know what kind of monies are going to be made, through the pandemic. We're hoping you get through it this year, particularly if you own restaurants. You hope to be able to figure out what your volume is going to be, but who can figure that out right now when the close or it changes every few weeks. So I would say budgeting is critical to figuring out what the organization is going to have, particularly in cash flow to pay for their expenses. Of course, the government has given some help to companies. That's a good thing, but I'm guessing that'll run out at some point, and they're going to have to start working things out on their own. Of course, they need to be open to do that. So that's been terrifically hard on companies. And as a manager, it would be horrible to try to figure a lot of this out. So if you are a manager, I hope you have done okay. And if you're not, these are things that who would have thought that you'd have to figure out as you went through. When you think about school, everything had to go to online, and that was never planned for. So that took a lot of resources and everybody kind of being on the same page, so they say, to get it done. And so sometimes we just have to adapt. We can plan everything perfectly and everything's going along just great, and then boom, everything falls out. And then what do? Maybe a backup plan, but try to figure out what we're going to do to earn our money and get back on track. And then the second part of that is there's different planning tools you can use, or different things in the book called the NAT charts and PERT, which calls it critical path. And these are tools you use as far as your planning in your management. And I'm a proponent of using any kind of a tool mathematically, particularly your Excel charts, that kind of thing, to make work easier and more understandable. So if you can see how these kinds of things fit into your management style or your management job, it's a big help. These are why these tools are talked about in the book, because they are very valuable for people and management. And so anyway, I guess what I would have you think about as you're looking at your information this week is just think about what the last year we've had, if you were a manager, or if you were a manager, or if you're not a manager. Could you have done things differently? Could you have figured things out faster? A lot of times it's flying by the seat of our pants, and some people do it better than others. So, like I said, hopefully things will be back to normal, but who knows? So anyway, I guess, like I said, that's what managers do. They plan out what everybody's going to be doing for the next year, and hopefully their plans are good and everything is, and we make money. How's that? So anyway, have a good week. We'll talk later.